welcome. I got another build for you today, and we're going to be looking at that robot arm and try to get those servos to work. So we've worked with servos before, so there really isn't any new knowledge. It's just a matter of applying that to this arm that has 4 servos hooked up to it. So let's go ahead and get rolling on this. What I'll do is show you how to do 2 of them, and then I'll have you do the other 2 by yourself. Okay, this is a pretty good view, about the best we're going to get. So here's the arm, and we're going to start off. So here's our servos, 2 here, 1 up here, and 1 underneath. Also 4 degrees of motion, and the hardest one is going to be the top one, and the easiest one is going to be the bottom one. So I got one word of caution that I need to stress, and I'll probably mention this a couple of times. Let me grab a servo that is not hooked up to everything. Servos, if you have forgotten, actually let me switch back to the other view. Okay, so these guys, unlike motors, which continuously you apply current to them, they'll continuously turn. These guys, they only turn a small amount. In the case of this particular servo, it goes from about 30 degrees to about 160. Now, we're supposed to be able to go from 0 to 180. But this one, its effective range is about, I've found it to be around 20 to about 160. So luckily, all of our articulations on our arm don't require us to move greater than 20 to 160. The problem is going to be, though, let me switch back to the other view. The problem is going to be like for this claw at the top. This claw, I'm going to manually make it open. There we go. So there's wide open and closed. Now I turn the servo maybe 45 degrees. 45-degree turn on my servo causes this thing to open and close completely. So the problem we're going to have is if we attempt to continue to try to open this, if it's at maximum, so it's like this, and we're still trying to turn that servo more degrees than it physically can because it's bound up by all this acrylic. This acrylic and the way the gears are, it's saying you can only go from, say, 45 to 90. That's physically, you're constrained to only move that amount of range. If we try to tell this thing to go from 90, continue to move from, say, 90 up to 160, it won't be able to. But it's going to try. It's going to do its best, and it's going to overheat and then destroy itself. So we have to help it out and be a little cautious in the values we're allowed to go to, especially this top servo. We can't just give it full range, because when we turn our potentiometer and we try to get to go full 160, it can't. It's going to try, it'll overheat. Now the one on the bottom, this one here, there's no problems whatsoever. It can turn the full range and not be a big deal. But maybe I should explain it up like this. This one, this servo right here, no problem. It can turn the full 160 with no restraint. This one up here, though, this will be a problem. The biggest problem. These 2 are in between. They can go, well, let's give it a try. Well, that was kind of fixed in there. They go about, I would say, double what the top one can do. Okay, I'll talk about that when we program it. But let's start with the easy one. Let's start with the bottom one. That's a very important caution we have to be thinking about. So I got to find the wire that goes to my servo. this one here, and we're going to use this potentiometer to control it. So let's go ahead and do what we normally do, which is to wire things up first. Get some things out of the way here. Find some wires. Here's a bunch of wires. Let's start with the potentiometer. There are 3 pins. The one in the middle is the one we're interested in. I've got them going across here. So my middle one is going to be right there. And we're going to send this as an output. Oh, excuse me. We're going to output some information from here into the Arduino. So let's go ahead and put that. Let me move some more wires out of the way. Just one second. Let me put that thing back. Alright. So we're going to gather some information from our potentiometer from turning the knob, and we're going to send that into, you can't see what I'm doing, let's do A5 right there. I like A5 because the 5 is easy to tell. I've actually typed in a 5. And if you recall, the other 2 pins, doesn't matter which side we select, one's going to be positive, one's going to be the negative. And since my servo also needs a positive and negative, let's go ahead and use these rails. Let's make the blue one the ground and make the red one. We'll make the blue one the ground and we'll make the red one the 5 volts. So I'm going to grab this black wire. We'll lift this up a little better. Don't have quite as much build space as I normally do, but luckily the wiring is not too difficult. So there's my ground, and I'm going to put that into this. Actually, let me think about this just for a minute. I don't want to have all these wires in the way of my hand, so let's orient it like this. So now, and let's make this side clear of stuff so I can get my fingers into here and turn this knob, and let's put all of our wires on this side and kind of build in this direction. So I got my ground. I'm going to put this into the blue rail here, and I'm going to do the same thing. Take those off so I can actually see close up. And do the 5 volt, which is right there next to my ground. And I'm going to use a smaller wire. This is the smallest one I've got that's next to me. We're going to go right in the dead center. So I'm going from my 5 volt, and I'm going to put that into my 5 volt rail so I can access these two. So I'm probably going to run out with all these potentiometers. I'm going to run out of space on my Arduino. Okay, so my pot pin, my potentiometer is set up. You could probably do a little coding and make sure it's reading something. Let's go ahead and do that. Kind of look at things as we go. So I'm going to go back to typing in some code. And let's get rid of these comments. Delete that one out. Let's delete that one out. We're going to take a look at the values. So we're going to do serial begin. I can spell right. That looks pretty good. We want to read a value. That's an analog value, so I got to store it in something. And we're going to do this with 4 different potentiometers. So let's use the physical location of where it's at. Let's call this one the base. So we'll call it pot pin base, or maybe servo base. I don't think I like servo base. Servo base it is. So that's the name of the servo that's underneath, the easiest one to control. And then we're going to take a look at it. Servo base. We're going to analog read that value, we put the wire into A5, and then we're going to take a look at it. So we're going to print it off. And let's delay it just a little bit so we can actually read it. Actually, we can skip this delay if we use the serial plotter. So let's go ahead and do that and see what we end up with. We can switch back to the normal serial monitor. Find a cable here. We're going to plug this into, I'm plugging that into, it's already in the computer. This end is now into our Arduino, like that. The lights are going on. Everything looks nice and happy. I'm going to look up here for tools in our port. I need to select, always default to the biggest number if you're not sure which one to use. And let's go ahead and upload that. It's asking me to save. I'm just going to hit save. You can give it a name. And we'll wait here a moment. Get some juices flowing. Right above my head here, we can see. Just thinking about it. Sometimes it goes a little slow, sometimes it goes pretty fast. Not much we can do except wait. Done. Uploading. Alright. So let's go ahead and open up the tools. We're going to do the serial plotter. And it's reading out values really fast. We expected that because we didn't put a delay in. All I wanted to see is if I turn this knob, is it actually going up? It is not, because Mr. Brower made a mistake. But that's cool. And you forgot what I did. It's not responding to anything that I'm doing. It looks like it might be, but it's actually not. I'm turning it and it's not doing anything. And then I look down here like, whoops, what did we forget? I hooked up everything except I didn't send the positive and negative to my potentiometer. There's only the one wire, only the signal wire is going out. So we can fix that without changing our code. So I need a wire for 5 volts on one side. Let's run one over like that. Doesn't matter which side I pick for the 5 volts. And then I need to go to the other side and send that one to ground. And wow, that changed things quite a bit, didn't it, on our plotter? Let's go ahead and change the knob now. Now it is following me perfectly. Up from 1023 all the way down to 0. Okay, that looks fabulous. Alright, so that part's done. Now we need to hook up our servo. This wire, this is the one that goes to the bottom. We call it the servo base. We're going to hook this one up and get this potentiometer to control it. Let's go ahead and do that. Let me get this out of the way. I guess we need to wire it up first. That was kind of in our pattern. Let's take a look at the colors. We've got the brown. Turn it so we can see it. Got a brown, which is going to go to ground, and then we got a red, which will be the 5 volts, and then the orange is going to be our signal wire. So let's put in, I'm going to use the black wire for my ground, and I'm going to push all these wires in first, and I'll plug them into the board, the breadboard. That red one's going to be my 5 volts, and then I love using yellow for my signal wires. Just visually I can quickly identify, and I do have one yellow one sitting here. So my yellow one is going to go and be my signal wire. Let's bring it down here. We're going to put my ground there. My 5 volts, I'm using the breadboard to put those into. And then my signal wire, I'm going to select pin 2, way over there on my Arduino board. Make sure it's into. That looks pretty good. That's simple enough. 3 wires coming out. Got nice convenient rails here for my ground and power, and then just one over to my pin 2. Okay, so we got a servo here, so we need a servo library. These are already loaded into our collection. We don't need to do any library management. When you download this IDE, it comes with a servo library. So we're going to click on that, and then we've got to do a little identification. We're going to make up a value. Let's call it this is the base. We just call it base. Servo. I can't use servo base because I use servo base on this one. This is referring to the pot pin, the potentiometer information. Maybe I should have used the pot pin for that variable. We went with it, so let's just keep going with that. So we'll just call it base, and then what else we need to do? We need to come down to here and servo. We gotta turn it on. No, not turn it on. We gotta attach, and we gotta tell it the pin that we're using, which was 2. That looks pretty good. Let's get rid of that little space, and let's leave that the same. Let's go ahead, and for this one, we're not worried about how much it's turning. We don't need to map anything at this point. Let's just go ahead and directly write in the value we're interested in without any modification. So we're going to do just a servo, well, we called it base. We're going to do a base write and see what happens. So let's go and do that. We'll call it base, and we're going to do a write, and we want to write to it. We're going to write a servo base. Okay, we could have done a little better with our naming of our variables. This base is what we named our servo, and the servo base is the potentiometer that's actually collecting information. Let me go ahead and switch these, I suppose, if you are really irritated by them. Servo base. Now let's go with it. The other potentiometers we'll call one like servo right, servo left, Servo Claw, or something like that. And let's go and upload this. So we're collecting this value and looking at it, and then we're just going to take that value and put it right into. Actually, we should be mapping this. I take that back. My bad, because this is going to be putting in 0 to 1023, right? The servo base value is 0 to 1023. We just saw that on the plotter. And our servo doesn't like numbers. It only changes. The value we're putting into here is going to be roughly, should be 0 to 180. That should be how much it moves. These guys are not as, are a little cheap, I guess I should say. And their motion is about 20 to 160. So if we put in 0 to 1025, we're really going to give it numbers that it doesn't even understand what they mean. So let's go ahead and do base, another value. I guess we got to take the mapped value and put it into here. So let's call up a new variable and call it mapped base. So let's shrink that distance a little bit. So the mapped base, and technically we don't even need it. We could just use the old name. I don't know if that's going to be more confusing to you or less confusing. Let's go ahead and keep going with this, and I'll explain it in a minute. So we're going to map the servo base, get a capital B there, and it goes from 0 to 1023, and we want to map it So it actually goes from, let's be a little safe, let's go 30 to 160. This is where we got to be very cautious. You know, watch out. Watch out right here. This is where all the, this is what's going to save our servos from getting damaged, is this line right here. Now what I meant before is we didn't actually technically need a new name. We could have just taken the value that we read, remapped it, and then called it and just put that value back into its old name. And that would save us from having to have a bunch of variables. So I think we're going to just abandon that one. The less variables we have, because we got to do this 4 times, so the less variable names we have, the better. So servo base. So whatever value it had, we're going to change it and then just reassign that value back to its old name and then put that back in there. Okay, now let's see. Let's actually take this value, because we know we're going 0 to 1023. Let's grab this and put this underneath here so we can read the value before we map it and then read the value after we map it. We don't need to actually do that either, but for clarification, so we can see what's actually happening, let's go ahead and do that. Oh, it's unhappy with something here. Let's see, what did I do wrong? Servo.attach pin 2. I called the servo a base, and then I switched its name and I called it a servo over here. So I need to call it what I called it. Up here I said use the word base. This is the variable we're going to use for my servo. And then I called it a servo and not the word base. So hopefully that solved the problem. We're going to have several servos. We can't call them all the same thing. You might be wondering, why can't it just call it servo.attach and get rid of this part up here? Because we're going to have 4 servos. We're going to have each one, it has to know which one is which. And this one's, whoop, got a little motion there. It startled me. I don't hear anything. If you actually, when you send something up to this, if you can hear it grumbling, it'll make a noise that it's trying to turn and it can't. If you hear that, you know, yank the wires out. Yank these wires out that go to the servo, so we don't have to destroy the thing. Then have me come over, and we'll take a look. All right. So my potentiometer, why it moved is my potentiometer is set at some value. I don't know what it is. Could be a 0, could be a 1023, could be somewhere in between. And so when I start this, it's reading that value and it's immediately mapping it, sending it to it. And if it doesn't match exactly its current position, then it's going to move to that new position. So let's go ahead and should we look at the serial monitor for this one? Values are coming pretty fast. So we got 144 and 48. And you can see it turning. There's my maximum, 160. And I got plenty of room. Plenty of motion that my thing can turn left and right. Let's get it going the other way. So do little turns here. Excellent. So now we're back to 0. So we went 30 to 160, and it didn't quite move 30 to 160. I'd say it's slightly less than that, but close enough. So that's looking great. I'm going to switch cameras. So I'll hold this thing up in this view, not pulling any wires out. And then let me go ahead and, there we go. Looks good. So we got plenty of range of motion. We're not going to be stressing that servo out at all. That looks fabulous. Alright, I'm going to put that back down. I said we'd do 2 of these together. Switch back to this. Now we're going to do the top one. top one here has the least amount of range of motion. I think we just talked about that at about 45 degrees. So what we have to worry about is this line right here. We're going to be inputting a 0 to 1023 from that potentiometer, but we can't let this servo move more than about 45 degrees on that claw. So this is going to be, and we don't even know where the servo is at the moment. We don't know if it's at 30, because when we hook this up, we don't know if it's set at 30 or some number in between 30 and 160. So we're going to shoot for the middle, and we're only going to allow it to be values of like 45 to maybe 90. So we're going to shoot for the middle, and hopefully it's about in the middle. We'll do one bit of a caution is when we set this, our new potentiometer, our second one up, we'll make sure it's at 0 to help things out a little bit. Alright, let's go ahead and do it. You'll see what I'm talking about as we go. This is all okay. We're going to need a new one. Let's call it the Claw. That sounds like a cool name. This will be the Claw servo. And we're going to have base dot attach. We got to, oh, not the base. Mr. Brower, you just named it as the Claw. This is the second servo, and we got to give it put it in a pin. Let's do pin 3. Let's go ahead and do that. I got to identify the wires that go to that servo. Let's go ahead and do just like we did before. I'm going to do a black wire into the ground. I'm going to do a red wire into my 5 volts, the red wire into the my servo, and I ran out of yellow, so let's just go ahead and use this white one and put that one into the orange. These two automatic. We'll plug one in. Not going to be able to see very well, but we're going to put the black one to the ground. We've done this 100 times, so that shouldn't be too big of a deal. We'll put the 5 volt one into the 5 volt rail like that, and then our signal on the program, we just set it to put it into pin 3, so I'm going to reach over here and put that one into pin 3. I can't even see what I'm doing. So pin 3, you can do it. Alright, so that one's in pin 3. So my second servo is hooked up. My potentiometer is not hooked up. I don't even have one in the board. So let's go ahead and do that part. Let's roll down here. Give ourselves a little space. We're basically going to be doing the exact same stuff right here. So we could copy and paste this. But before we do that, let's go ahead and wire this up. So here's my potentiometer. I'm going to put it over here. Well, you can't even see that very well. You don't need to see the, it's going to fall right off the edge of my desk. So let me see if I can squeeze it into here. So you can see this wire goes in another servo. Let's get that out of the way. Alright, so there it is. And the middle one, actually I do have another yellow wire. I'm going to get the middle one on here, take the glasses off so I can see. And we're going to be reading, it's an analog. So we're going to come over here, let's do A4 on our Arduino. Like that. And then we're going to do, doesn't matter which side we select, I'm going to make that side to be my ground and hook that to the ground. The other side, I'm going to hook up the 5 volt and hook that in to the positive side. And let's go back to our program. So the wiring is completely done. I still got plenty of room to reach my fingers into here. Let's go ahead and be a little cautious here. Let's just read off the values off this potentiometer, make sure that's working. We need new names though. Jumping right into this, we need new names for the Claw one. So let's call this one Servo Claw. Keep all our names for each servo and potentiometer roughly the same. So now we're going to do Servo Claw. We're going to read the value from the potentiometer, and that was an A4. Whoop, I accidentally clicked a F function and opened up something. There we go. Let's try that again. A4, I think we said. And let's just go ahead and read that. These over here we don't even need to see anymore. They serve their purpose. Let's message those out. So we're taking the value from the next potentiometer, reading it as Servo Claw, and then we're just going to take a look at it to make sure it's working properly. And that's all we're going to do. Then we'll turn the potentiometer to 0. Actually, probably should turn it, what would be the logical thing? Probably it would be to assume that the claw is in the middle of the 300 to 160. Let's assume it's, nope, it already moved on me. It moved on me. So I'm going to pull the wire out on it. It moved on me. That is interesting. And I didn't even feed it any information. Why was that? And it closed up real tight. So I pulled out the wire so I could save my servo there. Well, that's an interesting phenomenon because we haven't even sent. It must be just picking up some voltage from right here. So let's continue where we left off. Let's take a look at the numbers. Let's turn the knob. So that looks fabulous. I'm going to set this somewhere in the middle, around 500. Because like I said, when we upload this, you don't know what position that servo is in. So it's going to immediately move. And we're going to be cautious and pretend like it's like somewhere right between. Let's say it's at 90 or 80. And so if we make an error, it's not going to be, you know, a possibility. I mean, if we put it at 30 and the servo is set at 160, we got a huge, you know, and it tries to turn. That's where our error is going to be on the side of causing more damage than if we had set, and then if we assume it's on 90. I don't know if that makes sense, but just follow along with me and we'll work this out. Let's go ahead and map this out. We're doing the Servo Claw. That's what we called it. Servo Claw. And we're going to map it. This Servo Claw. We're going to map it. It is always from 0 to 1023. You have no choice with this. This one we're going to restrict its value. We're going to map it to 45 to about 90. We'll change these once we know what's going on. This is the watch out line. Got to be really careful here. We're only going to let it move a little bit, right? This one we let it move the maximum amount. This one we're going to let it move just a tiny amount, depending on where our potentiometer is, and we can adjust it. So then we're going to do, what do we call our servo? We called it the claw. So now we're going to call up that claw servo, and we're going to write a value to it. And the value we write is going to be Servo Claw. Okay. So we're going to take a deep breath here. We're going to be ready to pull that. I'm going to put the wire back in. Actually, it's making a little noise when I put it in. A little angry noise at me. So I'm going to leave it out until I upload, and we'll see what happens. We'll see where we stand. Alright, I'm going to plug this back in. I'm going to turn my servo, and it is not moving at all, and the teeth are just clenched. So we are shoved way over to one side. I don't know which side that is. Let's just take a guess. Let's pretend like it is this side. And we're going to resend this up. My servo is pressed, it's maxed my claw so it's squished in. So we're going to see if that is the 160-degree side, and we'll try to relieve the stress here once it's uploaded. Oh, that did work. Okay, now you're not seeing what I'm seeing, unfortunately. I'm going to bring this back in. So it was good to be cautious. So there's our teeth opening. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain this one last time because this is really critical. I don't know the orientation of my servo, this one at the top here. I don't know where it's sitting. If I pull one out of a bag here and I look at it, I don't know where it's at. I don't know if this is 45 or 160. I mean, I can turn it, which you shouldn't be doing, by the way. I don't know what its position is. Now, if it's sitting like this and I do this program, it doesn't matter because it's not. It can move anywhere. It's free to move anywhere. But this claw part restricts its motion to about 45 degrees, and I don't want the servo to be shoving these teeth together and maxing out, and then my servo is going to overheat and get destroyed. So what we did is we started off, and you're going to have to do this for the other two on your own, and your results might vary, obviously, because I just guessed that the servo was more on the 160 side than the 30-degree side. I just guessed. I could have been wrong, and I would have heard it being angry at me, and I would have had to pull the wire out, and then I would have had to switch this to 30 and say 90. So now I know what side it's on. I can open and close this, and it's not exactly maxed out, the claw. It can actually open up further than that. But I think I'm just going to be satisfied with that. I'm trying to tell whether it's the 160 side. I suppose I could look here, couldn't we? Where are we at with my number? So I am maxed out that way. At 0 it's pretty much closed, and then at 1023 it's at the 1023 side that we could go more. We could go more on the 1023 side. So that's the 160 side. So we're gonna have to leave it here because I can't. Let me just show you here. Let's say we did 80. We dropped it down. And I'm going to leave this, pull this wire back out while it's uploading. We'll see if this will actually make the problem. It should make the problem worse. It should make it more angry. Because when I was at 0 with my potentiometer, this read 90 and I was already pinched in. So if I make it 80 at 0, it's going to even more want to pinch in, because making these numbers closer and closer to 0 is motion that I can't get my servo to do, because that's 90 was a close already. 90 was pinching that thing closed, and I'm trying to get it to even go beyond where it can actually move. So let's go ahead and see. Right now it's angry with me. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm going to open it back up, and we're going to leave this at 90. Now you might get lucky and this servo could actually open up slightly more. Let's go ahead and do 180 here and see how that works. Now I mumbled on about this for probably about half the video, this cautionary part. If you're really concerned about it, just have me come over and we can walk through this last part together. But all we're doing is adjusting these two values, as we don't want to damage it. And you'll notice the claws went open even further. That's good. So open is on this 180 side, close is on this 90 side. And once I'm at 0, or close to 0, not quite 0, I'm already closed. So if I make this number smaller, I'm just going to be forcing that thing closed even more, and it's going to damage my servo. The other end, 180 is maximum, and it came out, and that's as far as open as we can get. Okay, so I hope that kind of makes sense. This is the hardest one to do. The other two along the sides here, they have a little more range of motion. So make a long story short, you'll build everything exact same. You'll just have to change the names. Maybe do the one on the right, call it servo right, call it the right dot right. That sounds funny, right with an R dot right. Up here you'll have to make another, call one servo right. You have to put in right dot attach and put the pin number that you use. When you get to this part, just be really cautious. What that means is start with 45 and 90. Start right in the middle. Well, not 190. Do 45 and 90. Let it run and kind of see what's happening. From that point on, it's just going to be a matter of what does my bot do when I start turning the knob, and then hopefully it's right in the middle of its motion. You're like, okay, great. So I got a little extra motion I can do on this side, so I'll make this a little bit bigger. Or I got a little motion more I can do on that side, so I'll make that little number smaller. And you just have to tease these numbers out until you get the range that servo fits for that bot. Okay, so let's end it there before I spend 3 hours talking about this. And we'll see you in the next project.